just not going to continue to go along with that. I mean, I don't want to shut the government down. I don't want to, I want people to have, nice things. I want our roads, our highways to be the best in the world, and they are. I want us to be able to provide services to the least of those among us that absolutely have to have it because they don't have anybody else to take care of them, and because they're in a position that these programs were really designed to help, but they've been taken advantage of, and the base has been broadened to such an extent that we can't afford to actually pay for the folks that the programs were intended for.
Right.
And I've been hearing from people and visiting people around the district, and it really just comes down to that. I mean, do you want to be the one that goes and tells the folks at places like the Human Development Center, there's not enough money to go around to help you? I don't want to be that person.
No, and quite honestly, I'm sure politically that's a tough decision to make.
Well, sure it is, and I mean we've absolutely got to cut spending, and this is you're between a rock and a hard place here, Paul, because you've got I'll say it again, $15.2+ trillion in debt. We've got no end in sight. We just don't have the money, and at the same time, we do have some obligations that we have to make, and so extremely tough choices to make. And
let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, because I was talking to a colleague of yours, Senator Bozeman, last week, and we were reflecting. And as a matter of fact, the last time, or maybe the first time I interviewed you, it was back when you were running for office, Congressman, and we were talking about a little pledge that I have. And one of the things I talked about was, are the American people willing to sacrifice? And I mentioned to you, the greatest generation, World War II. They sacrificed for their country in actual skin and their lives. And part of me is starting to think that the reason why, like you said, we're not willing to cut anything, I mean, we want to cut everything but the services that affect us, is because I don't know if the dangers of our debt and the fiscal collapse that's looming have been properly articulated. And one of the things that I mentioned to Senator Bozeman was, I said, look, back when Obamacare was big and everybody was at these town halls, you had so much interest. You had, in the case of Senator Bozeman's predecessor, Blanche Lincoln was having to defend it, which was hard to do. But you had all of this activity. You had legislators out explaining the dangers of the bill, explaining how bad it was. This debt crisis is just as bad as Obamacare, except it's much, much worse. It has much worse consequences in the long run. And I asked him, I said, it would be great if there was, especially on the Republican side, a coordinated effort. Get the delegates from all states and go around and, go from city to city. Have town halls, generate the interest and tell people exactly what the problem is. It's easy in World War II. You had a madman over in Europe killing everybody. That's easy to say, oh, well, we've got to do the right thing. But I don't know if a lot of people have, know the information that's actually out there.
Well, there are a few things that we need to be cognizant of, and one of them is the internet can do wonders for us and can do great things, but can also work against us. And there are folks who are content to forward things around, and everybody gets forwards during the course of the day, and we don't know that these forwards are vetted. You have somebody that he sends this, to his friend, and he sends it to his friend, and she sends it to her friend, and so on and so on. So you get these email chains of putting out bad information, and so I think we need to do a better job of vetting the source of information that we get before we continue to proliferate that message. And so, just as John Q. Public, be very leery of these forwards that you get. Some of them are accurate, and some of them are not. Some of them are alarmist, and some of them are, deliberate disinformation campaign. And so you have to be very, very careful there. But as far as a coordinated message, I mean, outside of being able to come on your show, there's very few media outlets that will stand for this kind of dialogue.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is because for the most part, they don't want to hear that message articulated they don't want to hear that we're going to have to tighten our belt and really, buckle down and try to figure out what we're going to have to do if we're going to preserve this country for our posterity. But you're right. I mean, there needs to be a constant reminder that, the degree to which we suffer right now is nothing compared to what it will be or could be if we're not making good decisions right now. Back in World War II, they were able to put a face on Hitler and Mussolini, and that was a common enemy, and we could talk about the Axis, and it brought everybody together. But in this era of political correctness, nobody wants to address these things, and it's all about feeling good, and we'll worry about the consequences later. And we were talking about kicking the can down the road is something you hear about all the time. Well, you know what? We've kicked the can so far that we're out of road and the can is smashed. So now it comes the time that we're going to have to make some choices. People are doing it at home, making a decision. I mean, you've seen the housing market. Jonesboro has been very fortunate. We've been in a bubble here in Jonesboro, if you want to know the truth of it.
Yeah, we have.
Where other parts of the country have really suffered economically. The Jonesboro real estate market has really weathered the storm very, very well. You can see that we have retail development, so that we're seeing businesses pop up. And so this has been somewhat of an anomaly with respect to our current economic climate. And Arkansas as a whole has actually come off quite a bit better. Our state government is fiscally more sound than most other states, and I think our economy is on the whole better than the country's, and that's particularly so in northeast Arkansas. And so I'm not sure that we fully appreciate the full picture here from other people's perspective. But when you get into other parts of the country and you see these people that are, scrambling to short sell their house, or they're making a decision about, how do we go through foreclosure without losing everything else, or, any number of things, where they've got to make these tough decisions. And there are families in this district that are suffering through the same thing, but not to the degree that others are in the country, and we've been blessed in that respect. But I don't want people to get the idea I'm not the sky is falling, all this kind of thing. I'm trying to be as positive as I can be, but I want to be truthful with folks. And I'm going to tell you that we have the capacity as a people to overcome this and come out of it stronger on the other side. But that's not going to come if we are not willing to, really give ourselves a tough assessment, a self-assessment here, and say, what is it going to take, and what am I willing to give up for this?
Yeah.
And I'm willing to give up anything I have today so that my kids have something better tomorrow. That's what I'm willing to do. That's
commendable, and that's the attitude we got to have across the board, Congressman.
But that's the attitude that we had in World War II, is that not only were they willing to give up anything, they were willing to leave their homes and their families to go over and fight a common enemy. Didn't know if they were coming back, didn't know what shape they'd be in when they came back, but they did it anyway. And we seem to have lost that. The common enemy in this country, and Admiral Mullen said it better than anybody could, the biggest threat to the United States of America is not a foreign power, it's our debt.
Yeah.
And this coming from the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And so when you see that our military commanders, military leaders have these concerns, then you know that it's bigger than anything we've ever faced before. And we don't have to leave our shores and leave our homes and our families to overcome this and conquer this like we did in World War II. But we do have to sacrifice, and we have to commit, and we have to say that this isn't good enough for our kids. We got the world handed to us on a plate, Paul.
Yeah,
we
exactly right.
You and I are close in age, and our world was just awesome.
It was. I mean, it was a fantastic childhood. I mean, instant gratification.
And that's the whole problem, is that I think as a society we've not really understood the kind of sacrifice that was made in order for us to benefit, and why we had those blessings to the extent that we have had. And now it's like, well, I'm not going to do that. Who's going to do it?
Right. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
So the point is, it's not going to be easy, but I guarantee you it'll be worth it.
No, it's definitely worth it. I mean, we're mortgaging our children's future. Mortgaging our children's future away, Congressman. I mean, I know you know that. And listen, we're about out of time, but I want to ask you one more question, real quick. The March for Life was a couple of days ago. What was it? This past weekend. And I watched your video on that, and I got to say, towards the end of the video, you said something that I think is applicable here in this scenario. But I wanted you to elaborate on this just real quick. You said the intersection of prayer and action can produce amazing results. What do you mean by that?
What that means is simply, I encourage people to pray. But you know what? Prayer is not enough if we're not willing to take the action that prayer calls for. And so go home and go to your quiet space, go to your prayer closet, and we've got to have God's help. But God requires us to not sit on the couch and wait for Him to part the clouds and shine a light and say, there it is, it's all fixed. And the point is that, we pray on these things, we meditate on these things, and then we actually move into action and do something to make our voices heard. And that allows God to work with us, through us, for us, and in us. And that's what I mean by that.
Wow. Congressman Rick Crawford, I think we'll leave it there. Thank you so much. I agree wholeheartedly, and I'll even give you an amen to that. That's fantastic.
Appreciate it, Paul.
All right, well, you be safe.
I wish I could have been with you. I'm on the road. I wish I could have been with you in person, but I want to get by and visit with you, and I appreciate you guys and everything you do.
All right, yes, sir, Congressman. We'd love to have you, and we'll get you next time. Folks, got to go to break. We're going to have a long break, it looks like, because we haven't had one yet, so I think we're just going to combine some breaks. How does that sound? Folks, thanks so much for being a part of the show. You're listening to the Paul Harrell program on the Answer to Us Network.